Hey everybody, Brian Von Vier here. I have a good question for you today. DMs and players, what was your "you done goofed up" moment? Part 2. Second or third time DMing. Only ran one-shots before this game. We started the campaign by playing a heavily homebrewed version of The Dragon of Icespire Peak, but kept most of the dungeons the same. Minor spoilers for Icespire Peak ahead, if you actually care. During their first dungeon crawl at the Dwarven Excavation, they reached the secret black room with the green gem. One of my brand new players during their first session was playing a Dragonborn Warlock, basically a murder hobo. He had been stealing a lot of items from his party members. All of the players are experienced and didn't care that they were being robbed, because that was just making for some fun RP moments later. Anyway, when he approached the statue with the gem, I started to give my description. You see a statue of a dwarf with horns, holding a large green gem. I pick it up, the Warlock player says. Okay, you want to pick up the gem? Yeah. Okay, you grab the gem and... I then rolled for damage, which was originally 4d10, but I changed it to 2d10 as to hopefully not kill everyone. And then it happened. Both landed on max damage. 20 damage at level 1. Half the party died, including him. But thankfully, I had a group of NPCs capable of reviving them in the town. Safe to say, we created a very memorable first session for the new players. Heck yeah! I was DMing a group for about 2 years. They were facing the big bad evil guy of the second major arc of the campaign, a custom vampire who had taken over a drow city by mind controlling their queen and effectively enslaving the population. Over the course of their last few sessions, they gathered information on the city and its tyrant, obtaining the help of a drow priestess who had ran away before being subjugated, as well as a cleric they saved who was part of another adventuring party that had failed to save the city. They had a pretty good idea they'd have to fight the queen as well as the vampire, and their priestess friend begged them not to kill her, a request the party's paladin took to heart. They reached the vampire and drow queen's lair and were flanked by an archer, another member of the failed adventuring party who had been captured and mind-controlled by the vampire. The fight was tough, but nearing the end, the archer was on his last leg. The queen was unconscious and down 2 death saves, and the vampire was panicking. The vampire knew the only person in the party who could kill him was the paladin, who was injured and had teleported to a balcony trying to keep her distance so she could deliver the final blow with Moonbeam, but also didn't want to upset their priestess friend. I knew the vampire would do whatever it took to reach the paladin, and he was prepared to spend his next 3 turns ignoring the party just to reach her. Paladin's turn. She had 1 spell slot left she was saving for Moonbeam. She examined the battlefield and said, I jump off the balcony and run to the drow queen and give her 1 hit point of lay on hands. Are you sure? Yes. My first thought was, you done goofed. The queen proceeded to heal the archer while the vampire walked over and knocked the paladin out in a single strike. From there, the party got taken out one by one and the fight ended in a TPK. TLDR. The lawful good paladin saved a chaotic evil enemy from dying because of a flimsy promise and got the entire party wiped. I made a boss fight in a room with a giant hole. Backstory. The first Lich in our homebrew world is named Ishna. He constantly pops into campaigns and is a total badass. In this session, he has trapped a god in a giant hole using some legendary binding chains the gods had created in an earlier campaign. There was a cool backstory to them and all, and it was going to be interesting to tell the players, in monologue form of course, how he got them and how he tricked the god into them. He has been ruling the god's domain while consistently being a prick to said god. I meticulously picked his spells and abilities. We actually had a character death in the fight, regrettable, but it happened. It was going incredibly epically until someone used telekinesis. Ishna failed his save and was out of legendary resistances. Long story short, the encounter got cut short very abruptly, and the big horrible Lich fell into a hole and died stupidly because I forgot to give him levitate or fly. Not mine, but our DM. He made a door of solid gold, and so we stole the door. Seeing his face when he realized his mistake was priceless, as my character, a fighter, got it off of its hinges, and our thieving druid broke the door down with heat metal. It was something like 200 ingots worth of gold. Damn, that's good. The party is now stupidly rich, as each ingot is worth around 500 gold each in our campaign. Should this have worked? Probably not, but I think it was because it was so creative the DM allowed us to profit from his f***up. One of our party members put a 12-year-old prince in a barrel full of bread. He then proceeded to yeet said barrel out of a window. I saw another barrel full of heavy rope. I tied my rope around the barrel and then around my waist. I then leapt out the window after the child. However, I am an 8-foot-tall, 300-pound dragonborn paladin, so the barrel fell out the window and I went unconscious. So that's it. Our group was in the town of Puddlefoot the morning after a tournament. The rogue had a Bloody Mary and failed her con save, so was drunk and believed everyone was a mermaid, which is her fear. So she ran around town threatening people, including a small child. We eventually dragged her back to the tavern, at which point the DM informs me, "New dress, cleric." Which I remembered she, as the blacksmith/tailor, gave our rogue and druid a dress to put on my cleric as a prank. I stormed off to put my normal clothes on, and the rest of the group made plans to deal with the Kraken we had been told was at our next destination. The plan was to get it really f***ing drunk by stealing booze. Great plan. I came back down properly dressed only to catch our rogue going into stealth. In character, I used locate object and ratted her out immediately since I didn't know the plan until I saw the others sneaking off around the back. After I picked up on the plan, I then figured I would have to distract them. The rogue said she has to apologize to the family of the kid she threatened. Now this is where I done goofed, lads and lassies. I try to make small talk with the bartender, to no success. I then ask who else was in the tavern, and the DM says that there are 3 other men in there just sitting and talking. Her face turned to horror when I casually said, "I'm gonna use my scroll of level 3 lightning on them." Now, I should clarify, I had been getting terrible rolls the last couple of sessions, so of course after I realized my mistake, I land a nat friggin' 20. The DM takes a second to gather her wits about what I just did and describes that the 3 men are basically vaporized since they weren't wearing armor or anything. Next thing you know, guards turn up and the mission to nick the booze is a bust. This event has both in-game and out-of-game been referred to as the Puddlefoot incident. I was a little disappointed they didn't buy my excuse, "Shit, that was definitely not the map." So, I'm running a 5th edition campaign where my players are lieutenants on a naval ship assisting a colony town cut off from the mainland by a Leviathan. The ship's wizard/warlock, a sea elf who's kind of a dick, owed the quartermaster, dwarven bard, a drink, and the shark and barbarian tagged along to the tavern in port. They arrive, and the dwarf asks the bartender for his strongest drink, naturally. Normally, I'd have the dwarf roll a d20 luck roll, but I decided to have him roll a D100 to see what he got, as I had seen a D100 drinks in a tavern chart before. Natural 100. After picking our collective jaws off the floor, I had to take 10 to plan exactly how far this campaign got derailed. I decided to serve them each a pan-galactic gargle blaster. They woke up 3 weeks later. The Sharkan spent a week working out, a second week single-handedly improving the town's harbor defenses, and then started a cult to protein. She woke up in the middle of a sermon she was giving and flexed her way out of it. The bard got elected to the city council as a surprise last-minute entrant to the election, having drummed up the town's support in a blitzkrieg door-knocking campaign. He also co-authored a paper on the most efficient way to supply a ship for voyage, and built a pipe organ in the lower decks. He woke up in the middle of drafting new tax legislation and is scheduled to give a speech later that day. The wizard/warlock proposed to the kobold librarian, whom he despises, and became part of the town's new philanthropic power couple. He built a new wing of the library where he now has a room, a new orphanage, and a lobbying group/tax consultancy agency for charities in the city. He woke up cuddled in bed with his betrothed and has a meeting with the agency in an hour. Their next session will now be them retracing their steps hangover style. In my previous campaign, which is out on hiatus, there was a raid on a rather nefarious shadow organization trying to take control from behind the scenes. I had planned for the cultists to summon a random demon from a D100 list of possible demons from my setting I'd made. I rolled a Duke. Oh no. In the lore of this setting this campaign took place in, a demonic Duke is more or less nobility in a demon lord's realm. However, the enemies that were trying to summon this demon were unlikely to be able to maintain control over a demon of this caliber. So I ruled it as once summoned, the Duke would slap a few people around before leaving. All they had to do was stop the ritual. To their credit, the ex-Paladin of the party did stop the ritual by pushing the person who is just barely keeping control of the Duke and the one who would have been possessed out of the center of the active summoning circle. Well, the summoner lost control, and after several rolls, the ex-Paladin just barely manages to not be possessed or have all his blood pour out of every orifice by an annoyed Duke who was just enjoying a nice tea made of the souls of the damned before all this went down. The consequences of this action are still being felt. If someone is standing in the center of an active ritual circle, don't take their place, mates. TLDR. Player runs into an active ritual circle which was summoning a demonic Duke. Nearly gets possessed, nearly dies, consequences still ongoing. More news at 11. Brave boy Brian Von VA here, hoping you enjoyed the video and had a healthy dose of laughs to go with it. If you liked today's video, leave a like, consider subscribing, ringing that bell, and joining our subreddit r/MrRipper in order to submit all of your crazy and hilarious adventures to us. Clicking that beautiful blue mug on screen will get you over to my channel, Brian Von VA, the narrator, where I stream games and talk about plenty of things voice actor related. Can't wait to see you there. With that said, I hope everyone is staying safe because I know times are still rough. I know it's hard to see a light at the end of the tunnel here, but trust me, things will get better. Take time out of your day to call a friend, say hi to your parents, hug a loved one, or get away from the world so you can have a mental health day just to yourself. All the love from me to you. Be safe, be happy, and we will see you next time.